Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Hello and welcome to the Central South Consortium podcast. In 2021, in collaboration with schools and universities in the region, we created a publication called 10 Ways to Support Initial Teacher Education in Schools. This is the third episode in a series of 10, each exploring one of the 10 ways that schools can offer the right kind of environment where both student teachers and school can flourish. The title of this podcast is Prioritise Wellbeing. My name is Sian Watkins and I'd like to introduce you to Gavin Gibson, who is subject mentor at Mary Immaculate High in Cardiff. Hi, Gavin.
Hello.
Lovely to see you again. Gavin, we talk about the right kind of environment where students, teachers and schools can flourish. And so obviously we need to be thinking about well-being. But I don't know about you. I think all teachers can remember their initial teacher education as being a pretty stressful time. Do we just need to accept that, or is there much that schools can do to alleviate that stress, do you think?
Yeah, I think there really is opportunities for us as mentors in schools to really ease that burden they feel doing that first year. I remember my first year in teachers training just being so hard. Those trips driving home from school and just thinking, why on earth am I doing this? So I think for us, our role is really important in that. And in our school, we like to there's really three key things I think that help students get over those initial challenges, really. And I just want to highlight some of those for you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So firstly, I think really important off the bat is that induction and introduction to the school is massively important. And when those students come in and they understand the procedures within the school and how the school runs confidently, then they just become a far better teacher when they know that they can comfortably use the behaviour for learning policy in the school, and they know the students understand that they know. It just makes their life 10 times easier, I really feel. So that first initial introduction, get them to know the system so that they can really use them effectively throughout their time in the school. Secondly, I think it's really important that mentors understand that these students, they're not the finished article. They're nowhere near that. I think most teachers will recognize themselves. They're still growing. Even 16, 20 years in the profession, they're learning new things. And these students are literally fresh out of university or fresh out of wherever they've come, and they are learning, and they will make mistakes, and it's okay they make mistakes. And our job as mentors is to really coach them through those mistakes, because they'll know where they went wrong. And often if they can come up with their understanding, their ideas of why they went wrong and where they went wrong, they feel empowered, they feel far more part of the improvement process really for themselves. And I think that's what we all strive to do as teachers, to improve ourselves constantly. And we've got to remember that they are very much not the finished article and that they are growing in our school, and we've got to encourage that growth.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then finally, something I've always done, and I've always found it really useful, and I think being a science teacher, it comes a little bit easier for us, is I've always given my student teachers a space to work. And normally it's in a prep room or it's in the science workroom here. But it's a place where they are part of the faculty, where the faculty come every single day in between lessons to grab books, to grab pens, whatever it is they do. Those students are embedded within our department. They're part of it. And I firmly believe that they learn by osmosis. They see all the other teachers in the department working, discussing ideas, discussing things that went well, and they pick up on all those things. And equally, they pick up on those things when the lesson didn't go so well. When that teacher had a rough lesson with year 9 on a Friday afternoon, and they get that sense that, oh, it's okay to mess up. It's okay that it doesn't always go right. I'm not going to be perfect all the time. And I think that's just something that's so key and fundamental to them growing and developing, and not having this complex that I'm not good enough because I've got something wrong. So really, that's something we always give them, and I think it's been one of the keys to us having such a successful set of students coming through our department, really. And it just works for their well-being too.
Yeah, I really like that idea because you don't really think about space very often when you think about well-being. But yes, when student teachers come into a school, they're very aware, aren't they, that they are the guests in that school, and they don't know where to sit necessarily. They don't know where to put their bags. They don't know where to put their files, etc., their computers and so on. So to actually be able to mark that out and say, here you go, this is your space, this is where you're welcome. Well, they're welcome everywhere, I'm sure, but this is where you're welcome to spread yourself out a little bit, and also be part of a team. It's a really great idea.
Yeah, I think, and what I've seen anyway, when they are part of that team, it just increases their productivity. They learn things. They can speak to the technician. How do you do this? How do you do that? They can talk to other teachers. How would you teach this? And you engage in those learning discussions. And I think ultimately increases their productivity and increases their well-being as well. I think when they're part of that team, they feel safe. They feel supported. They feel, they feel that they can fail forward and improve all the time, and they're not going to be judged on that. So I think it's massively important they do become completely part of the team when they're here.
I like that. I like that idea of feeling safe and supported. Presumably, regular mental meetings are an important part too, of providing student teachers well-being. Do you have any advice about that?
Regular meetings are a godsend when you're a tutor mentor, especially if you've got more than one. They just become a space where you get to stop and you get to switch out the day of teaching and just spend time with that student. When I do it, I like to sort of really just hold that space and let them talk. And I encourage the students to be sort of really organized. So when they come to me, they know what they want to talk about, they know what they need to do, and they can just talk. And very often it's just a case of holding that space and coaching them through that role. And they'll tell you what their week's been, and they'll tell you what's gone well, and they'll tell you what hasn't gone well. And then you can just allow them, as they talk and you let them talk, they'll often come up with their own set of targets for next week. And that's what I like to do, really. It's just, and if there's anything that I've picked up from other members of staff, we talk about it, we discuss things. Like, so for example, several teachers have noticed you talk when the class is still talking. You know, don't do that. Let's work on let's make sure this week now in every class that when we ask Tree Day in Dim Sharad, they are silent before we talk. And you know, you can have those sort of sometimes quite hard discussions as well, because they understand that they're doing it, and they often do it because they're nervous. But if you can have that sort of compassionate discussion with them about that, you can see improvement. And it gives you opportunity that if it doesn't improve, you can see that, look, last week we said this. We haven't seen that.
Do you ever talk to them as well during those mental meetings about perhaps beyond just their teaching in the classroom, but beyond the wider scope of things and how they are doing or how well they're feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the skill of a mentor, isn't to read your tutor. In those sessions, you can, and you can see the ones who are just getting bogged down with assignments from university and work in school. And sometimes you have to have those conversations where you say, what do you do outside of school? What do you do to combat that? How do you release that sort of the stress in your life? Because we all need that. We all need to kind of empty our stress bucket a little bit. What do you do? And so often students are totally engrossed in this year. Everything is for this year. Everything is for their PGC. And I actively encourage them, look, no, it's the weekend now. Leave your work here. Don't take your books home. Off you go, enjoy your weekend, come back, it'll all be here on Monday, and we can start again. So yeah, that's one of the joys of the regular meeting, is you get to see that every week. You get to see the student, how is their body language, how are they talking to you, and from that you can gauge their well-being. And sometimes it is those conversations of, go home now, let's just pause, have tonight off, we'll come back and start again tomorrow. And I think they're really important discussions to have.
Yeah, I agree. So that's really important in terms of thinking about the well-being, the full 360 well-being, if you like, well-being in the classroom and well-being at home, to make sure that they take advantage of things like exercise and diet and rest and relaxation to make themselves more productive teachers. But what about the well-being of everyone around the student teachers? Because the title of this podcast is Prioritise Wellbeing. It's not Prioritise Wellbeing of student teachers. There's a lot of people who are involved in their experience, and including things like mentors and, of course, the pupils themselves.
Yeah, I think for the mentors themselves, those regular meetings are vital, because they become a space where you can switch off all your other school stuff and focus on that student. And as everyone who's ever been a mentor will know, there's an awful lot of paperwork that comes with it, and it's got to be done on time at the right time. I think mentors often get stuck with this role, and sometimes it can be stressful. There's lots and lots of paperwork. There's lots and lots of time spent speaking with students, and I think we've got to maintain the well-being for that member of staff too. And I think that regular timetable slot is so important. If you can speak to your senior mentor and get yourself a timetable slot where that is just for you, and you know for that hour that you can concentrate solely on that student, then it's going to make a massive impact on you. When those meetings are organised and the student is organised, you can get so many of those forms and those little bits done that you don't need to worry about them then in the week. So I really do feel, get that timetable lesson slot out the way so you've got that time, and that's your time when you spend entirely with that student. It's really important that the pupils feel safe, and one of the ways that we can do that is, as a school, is really clearly defining our procedures for safeguarding. If we can do that well in school, I know they get a sense of that in the college and the university, but it's not the same. When we go into a school, each school is different, and the procedures are slightly different. So I think it's really important they get a good explanation of the procedure in the context of the school in which they're in, and then they can feel safe, and the pupils can feel safe, and everyone feels safe there ultimately, which leads to an increased well-being.
Of course. So really, the senior mentor plays a big role in all of this then, because it's the senior mentor's responsibility to look after the mentors, and perhaps to provide that introduction at the start of so that the pupils are properly safeguarded and supported. And you also mentioned at the beginning of this about things like behaviour management, and so you get that consistency of experience for pupils.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. There's some really good tips and advice there, Gavin, and I really appreciate you spending this time with me to talk about it. Wellbeing is certainly a national priority, and when it comes to student teachers going out to school, sometimes the focus can be so much on standards and meeting requirements that sometimes it's easy to forget that student teachers need their well-being looked after too. So it's been an important podcast. But that's all we have time for. I'd like to thank you, Gavin, for your experience and your advice there as subject mentor. And to our listeners, please remember that this is one in a series of 10. Please look out for our other episodes. And if you want to read more, the publication 10 Ways to Support Initial Teacher Education in Schools is available on the Central South Consortium website.
Diolch am wrando ar y benod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.